Well, hello. Welcome once again to Stuff and Things, where I like to talk about stuff and occasionally even things. I'm your good friend Bradley, and today, oh my lord, we have many questions from you to get to. Last week, we did our special Christmas box opening. It was an amazing gift from our good friend David from Luxurious Bastard Beard Care Products, and he sent me some amazing things. If you did not look at that video, you should definitely go back and check it out. One of the things he sent me, this beautiful Dunhill Bruyere Bulldog. This is the most amazing bulldog. I love the shape. I love the proportions. This is from 1977. It is gorgeous. And that was just the tip of the iceberg. Well, it was probably the most impressive part of that gift, but go back and look at that video. It's amazing. But we didn't do any of your questions last week, and I said, hey, just keep asking me questions. I'm going to store them up, and we're going to do them on the next Sunday Stuff and Things. And my lord, did you do that? We have so many questions. I'm going to try to get through all of them. I actually ran out of printer paper and had to use recipes from my fiancé, printing on one side, cardstock to get all the questions printed out so I could read them for you this week. Before we get to the questions, though, we're not going to have, a main topic of the show because it's going to take a long time to get through all of these, but I just want to briefly just say, hey, Happy New Year. I hope you're all doing well. It is finally 2021. Everyone keeps talking about how awful 2020 was and how they can't wait for the new year to begin. I understand that sentiment. I'm not really someone who puts much stock in New Year's. I don't make resolutions. I don't think of it as, it's just another day basically. Time rolls on, just keeps rolling on. The fact that not arbitrarily, but the fact that one calendar year ends and another one begins, it doesn't really make me feel any differently about anything, and we're basically all in the same or similar situations that we were last week. I guess it is a good time to sort of look ahead and think, how are things going to be different if we make them different, if we take the effort to make things different in our lives. So hopefully, if any of you felt that 2020 was a horrible year, you have some hope for the future, and if a new day, a new year brings that to you, that's great. And that sounded condescending, but I didn't mean it to sound condescending. In this new year, we have some videos to look forward to. We're going to get through some of that briefly. I just noticed that my camera app wasn't showing me the live view anymore. It looks like we're still recording. I hope we're still recording. So, videos coming up on Stuff and Things and Stuff and Things Plays. I just recorded a review of this. This is a Domke F2 original shoulder bag. This is the bag that I use for all my camera equipment. When I go out, I take my camera with me a lot of the times and I put it in this bag. It is fantastic. I love this bag, and I did a review of it for the channel. I also do kind of a quick what's in my camera bag kind of video. So that will be posting this Wednesday. We did Escudo Revisited last Wednesday. You should check that out if you haven't yet. And we still have some other blends that are coming up in the Revisited series, I guess. We mentioned those in some of the videos last week or the week before. There are still quite a few blends that we need to get to, so stay tuned on that. We are still continuing with our Cyberpunk 2077 series on Stuff and Things Plays. Also, Soma is getting near the end, I believe. So that's basically every other, we do Monday, Wednesday, Friday videos on Stuff and Things Plays, so every other video will be either Soma or Cyberpunk 2077. And like I said, we have so many questions I want to get to. The topics that I would normally discuss on a Sunday Stuff and Things, we are going to hold over till next week. I was going to talk a little bit about some of the movies that my fiance and I have been watching, some really great old classic movies, some other topics. I had many things to discuss, but like I said, we have so many questions from you, and I think we should just get into it now. Our first question is via Patreon, but if you have a question for me and you would like it answered on the Sunday Stuff and Things, if you are a Patreon supporter, you can go through Patreon, ask me questions there, ask me or send me messages, I'll answer your questions. If you don't have Patreon or you're not a supporter there, you can go to Twitter at @SATBradley with the hashtag #AskStuffandThings. And then I also try to answer questions from the YouTube comments when I can. But from Patreon, from Dr. Dre, thank you, Dr. Dre, for being a Patreon supporter, we have this question. He asked for an Italian accent. Oh, no. I don't know if I could do an Italian accent. Okay. Bradley, what's that? I noticed you have recently reviewed two different vapors that now it's like just turning into like Eastern European or something, that each had a well-aged Virginia and Perique. These were the Ken Byron Ventures Verge Engine Overdrive. This is horrible. And the other being Chris Cringle Flake, or just Cringle Flake. I'm sorry, I've lost the accent completely. I never had it to begin with. How would you compare the two, or would you say there was much similarity? I like the mellow stewed dark fruit notes in both, but Elizabethan is still the best everyday smoke. Happy Festivus and Merry Christmas. Thank you very much, Dr. Dre. Ken Byron Ventures Verge Engine Overdrive and Cringle Flake. I would say that they did both have, especially Verge Engine Overdrive had very aged Perique in it. And I think I noticed that more in Verge Engine Overdrive, where the Perique was sort of tamed. It wasn't quite as spicy and peppery as you would typically get in Perique. And you tasted maybe the flavor of the Perique more as opposed to the feeling of the Perique, the spiciness. But they did have a similar, like you mentioned, a stewed dark fruit note. I don't know if I could pick a favorite between the two, but they're both pretty good and well worth checking out. I guess Cringle Flake is probably gone by now, but thank you for the question, Dr. Dre. Next, via Patreon, we have a question from Christian Kovacs. Christian asks, do you use an air purifier for the smoke in your studio? Would you consider having one? I know it's hard to get JF Germain in the US, but have you tried Germain's Brown Flakes? Can you recommend a Virginia Burley tobacco? Many thanks, Christian. I have used air purifiers in the past. They never really seem to do anything. I find that if you're going to be doing any indoor smoking, the best thing is just to have a lot of air circulation and exhaust. Like put a fan, if there's a window somewhere, put a fan in the window blowing out. And pipe smoke doesn't really do that much anyway. It doesn't linger the same way that cigarettes does, or do. And then Brown Flakes, you guys will remember this more than me, but didn't I do a review of Best Brown? I thought. I'm gonna have to look through my reviews online, but I'm pretty sure I have done at least Brown number 4. That's a rope. What have I done? I can't remember. I'm sorry, but I have a whole review playlist that you can look through and just search for Germain, or search Germain on my main YouTube channel, and you'll find all the reviews that I've done. And then a Virginia Burley blend. Off the top of my head, I'm not thinking of a Virginia Burley blend that I would love to recommend. I can think of just some Burley blends that I really enjoy. I love Solani Aged Burley Flake. I used to really like Peterson Irish Flake. And some of those might have a little bit of Virginia in them. I can't remember everything offhand. Also, Haunted Bookshop is great for Burley, so check some of those out. And thank you for the questions. Christian, I think we should probably light up a little bit of the Peterson Elizabethan that I have in my Castello. Beautiful sea rockish briar. It's not quite the sea rock briar finish on this pipe. And it's a beautiful bent kind of plateau finish on the shank here. Really nice pipe. All right, next from Twitter, we have a question from Paul Denny or Den at Paul De Bruni. Hashtag askstuffandthings. Hi Bradley, have you tried J.M. Boswell's Northwoods before? I just saw Matches from 6 years ago and thought it might be your style of smoke. Matches talked of smoking an aromatic which left a ghost in the pipe when he next had his Haunted Bookshop. Yes, Haunted Bookshop, we just mentioned that. I have had a 1 ounce sample of Northwoods. I have never had enough to do a full review. I have trouble getting anything shipped to me, and I think I tried to get some in the past, but that's something I should do because many people have asked about Northwoods. Thank you for the question, Paul. Next, from 1.21 gigawatts at Ninjatu 88993807. I'm glad you got to try Cringle Flake. I don't know if you remember, but I sent you a link for it just days before it came out on the market. Yeah, actually I do remember that. But then Sutliff just randomly sent it to me. My question is, what did you get your fiancé for Christmas? That's an interesting question, 1.21 gigawatts. I got her, she loves movies, or not movies, she loves film. And she has watched everything. Like, it's so hard to ever think of a film that she hasn't seen. I'll suggest it to her and she'll be like, yeah, I've already seen it. She is obsessed with the Criterion Collection and the Criterion list. She's watched, I think, every single film on that list, which is insane. And I got her a 4K Blu-ray player so she could watch films at the highest quality that she could possibly watch. Because I have a 4K TV and we end up streaming a lot of stuff from like Amazon or Netflix or things like that, renting on Amazon. And even if you're watching a supposed 4K stream, it does not look as good as if you have the actual physical media in a 4K Blu-ray player. So I got her one of those and a couple Blu-rays as well. Next, from just another username at justano36606238. Hey, fountain pen question for you. Favorite inks, sheening, shimmer, shading, or plain old flat? I've talked a bit about some of the inks I've enjoyed in the past. I really like the Pilot Iroshizuku line, and they have a lot of nice sheening in them usually. I really enjoy, I'm going to forget the name now. It is Tsukio, I believe, is their very dark midnight blue. And it has this really great red sheen to it, or you almost get like a rainbow sheen to it. It's really great. I also like diamine inks, diamine. Ancient Copper is great, Oxblood is great. So those are the lines that I like a lot. I've had some Noodler stuff too, which is good, that has some interesting sheening, but I do like some sheening. I don't really have any that I can think of with shimmer, but it's been a while since I've purchased any inks, because you buy a bottle and it will last you a decade, basically. They last a long time. Next, from Billy Penn at The Kapler. I'm thinking of getting a Castello shape 55, but I occasionally like to clench, and it does not appear to be a good shape for that. What is your opinion? I have a shape 55, and it's a biggin. Is it a quadruple K or a triple K? I think it's a quadruple K. It's a big old pipe. It's not heavy for how big it is, but it's still a fairly heavy pipe because it is so big. And I clench it all the time. I think it's actually great for clenching because it has that nice jutted forward sort of look. I clench straight pipes constantly. Like, I will clench this Dunhill, even though this isn't a very heavy pipe, it's fairly petite. But I have no issue with it. In fact, you know, everyone thinks that a bent pipe is better for clenching. I haven't really discovered that. I don't notice much difference really, and I actually prefer, in general, I think I prefer straight pipes, and even for clenching, sometimes I don't like the fact that a bent pipe will dangle so far down. I like it being right there, so I can see what's going on. Next, from Faux Finch at Faux Finch SK, Annyeong from South Korea. Well, hello. I don't know if you are actually Korean, but it's very cool to have a viewer in South Korea. I made a Twitter account just to send you this message. Wow, thank you very much. Your videos are helping me more than you know to deal with my depression every day. Thank you. Any tips to maintain good mental health during the pandemic? Hashtag askstuffandthings. Well, that is crazy to think that you're getting any benefit from my videos other than informational, but that's great if that's the case. That's a tough one. Let me sit back and ponder for a minute. Mental health during the pandemic. I think that's very much dependent on what sort of situation you're in. If your life has been severely affected by it, you know, if you can't work, if many of the things that you would typically do you can no longer do, then it's always more difficult. I've been able to work most of the time. My life hasn't changed a huge amount. I think that try to focus on the things you can do and try not to let yourself be subsumed by fear, because I know so many people who are so fearful, and it's good to have a realistic idea of the facts and what's really going on and what the actual risks are and take proper precautions for those, but don't don't let yourself get so freaked out that you can't live your life. I saw someone the other day, I had to go into a convenience store and grab something, and you know, they have little marks on the ground. Everyone's supposed to keep social distancing. Everyone has a mask on. And there was a young couple who were rather drunk, and they were fiddling around, grabbing a bunch of snacks and stuff, and not really paying attention. They had masks on, but they weren't really paying attention to social distancing guidelines. And there was a guy who had to be, I don't know, 22, 23. He had a mask on, he was waiting in line, and the woman in the couple kept getting kind of close to him. And I could see in his eyes, like they were just opening wide, and I could see this just mad fear in his eyes. And eventually he flipped out, and he was like, I'm sorry, I'm just really uncomfortable about this. And he ran away, ran out of the store. Now, whether or not you agree with social distancing guidelines or mask wearing guidelines, anything like that, I think we can all agree that in that situation, that fear response was a little much. So don't let yourself get to that point. I know it's kind of difficult when you're constantly getting this drumbeat of really bad news all the time, and it's easy to let yourself be caught up in that. But just control the things you can control, try not to worry too much about the things you can't, and just get the enjoyment you can out of your daily life, and try not to focus on the negative parts. That's my advice. I don't know how useful it is, but that's kind of what I do, and it seems to work for me. Next, from Bilal Ayedi at Darklanov. Hey Bradley, I've been watching your channel since 2015. Well, thank you. I heard you say that you work in construction and that you have studied philosophy in college. I'm really intrigued about the biology posters behind you, especially that they're in French. Thank you very much for watching for so long. I don't know exactly what your question is. I did study philosophy, and I do work in construction. The posters behind me, let's see, the only reason that they're in French is because they just happen to be in French. There's an antique store in town, or at least there used to be. I think they may have closed now because of coronavirus, which sucks. I think they're totally out of business. And they had all these posters. You'll find these at like art stores and stuff. They're not old, they're not antiques, but they're just, I just like that aesthetic, and they have a bunch of different designs, and I just grabbed a few of them. We have a couple up in our apartment as well. I just like them because they remind me of like something you would see in a Wes Anderson film or something like that. Just this, I think it reminds me of like 60s or 50s set dressing, or like Moonrise Kingdom, the kind of thing you would see in like a children's room in Moonrise Kingdom or something. I just like them. I don't know French or read French or speak French. Next, from Omar at Abojo. Okay. Hey Bradley, hope you enjoy a great Christmas with the fiancé. I recently got a Peterson pipe lighter because of your great review. I noticed that you don't seem to be using it in your videos anymore. Did it break on you? Should I be cautious? Take care. Hashtag askstuffandthings. I get this question all the time. Like, people seem to get really freaked out when they don't see me using that lighter. And I hardly ever use it because I mostly just use a Bic, because a Bic runs out and then just grab another one. I don't always have butane on me. And if I'm on the go, which I am when I'm in the studio, I just have a Bic. But it still works fine, still works great. Just make sure you clean it and maintain it. Whoa, okay, so we still have one more page worth of questions. No, I'm sorry, two more, well, 1.5 more pages worth of questions. I told you, there were a lot to get through. Hopefully you will find this as interesting as I have reading through these. This one is from It's Your Boy Ted Bradley at I_like_SAT. Thank you, Ted. Bradley, have you ever considered power Yogalates? It's great for your health and fitness. I do it myself and feel phenomenal after sessions. I'm assuming this is a combination of Pilates and yoga. I don't know what Pilates are. Like, those have been around forever. People talk about it and like, oh, I had to go to my Pilates class or whatever. I have no idea what that entails. I have no clue. Does it involve like exercise bikes or treadmills, or is it all like aerobic stuff? I have no idea. I do yoga with my fiance. That's something that she is like forcing me to do, and it actually helps a lot. I've had back issues and stuff in the past, having done construction for so many years. and that makes a big difference. So I would recommend at least yoga, and if Power Yogalates is good, yeah, that sounds great too. Next from Steve Smith at Steve, or no, at, oh, no. This was actually a non-Twitter message. This was an email. So I'm not going to read out his email address. Steve says, I've been enjoying your videos. I used to smoke pipes many decades ago and I'm considering taking it up again. I noticed you had restored a Savinelli Punto Oro Corallo. You mentioned briefly some of the steps you took. I recently got an estate Corallo that I would like to clean up to its original unripened state. What did you use on the exterior surface? Alcohol? Soap? I think you mentioned using a Scotch-Brite pad. I wonder if that is too abrasive and might sand down the sandblast texture. Any detail would be appreciated, and keep up the good work. Thank you for the question, Steve. I don't remember saying anything about a Scotch-Brite pad, and if I did say that, don't do that on the surface. It's not a sandblast, it's actually a hand-carved surface on the Corallo de Mare. I just used, from what I remember, I just used alcohol. And typically you wouldn't use alcohol on the surface of a pipe like this. The stain on here will be taken off with alcohol. But on a Corallo de Mare, there is no stain. It's virgin wood. So if you have a lot of coloration on the outside of it, you can use an alcohol wash and just scrub it off with that. Maybe a sponge. Maybe I said that I used a sponge. Maybe I did use a Scotch-Brite pad. I don't think so. Like, you don't want to be too abrasive with that because you can, rub down some of the finish eventually. But maybe just lightly with a Scotch-Brite pad. But yeah, alcohol is fine on that, but don't use that on any pipes that are actually stained. Next, we have a comment via YouTube from Kyle P. And actually, Kyle wrote me an email as well with the same question, and it simply states, how do you deal with the haters? Thanks for the question, Kyle. I don't think I have very many haters. I know that it's just sort of a cliche that if you're on YouTube, you're going to get 1,000 horrible hate comments every video you post, and I don't really. For the most part, everyone is really nice. The community seems really nice. I hardly ever get any negative comments. If I do, they typically follow one of two patterns. Either it's just something completely ridiculous and it's someone who isn't really a regular viewer, they're just being a troll and they somehow happened to pop across one of my videos and just said something ridiculous. If that's the case, I'll just ban them from the channel and ignore it. And there's also someone who has watched for a while and has become disenchanted for some particular reason. And I see this pattern play out a lot. Well, not a lot, but occasionally. And it'll be someone, if someone leaves a comment that seems really rude or weird, I can look back through. I search for them in my comment history and I can find any other comment that they've ever left. And you'll see a pattern where it starts out, they discover the channel, there's a video that they liked, and that's what brought them to the channel. And they will leave comments, usually nice comments. I usually try to respond. Some maybe I did respond to, some maybe I didn't. But then you can see that for whatever reason, there may be something that I've done that makes them disenchanted with the content or with me, and they take it way more personally than seems normal. And you'll see the comments slowly getting more and more critical until finally they're just really annoyed and they want to let me know that they're so annoyed with what I'm doing or what I'm saying or what kind of videos I'm posting. In that case, I try to engage and I'll be like, oh, thank you for watching. I'm sorry if this video was not to your approval. If it still keeps going, then usually I will, and if they get to the point where they're being abusive or just mean, then I will just, hide them from the channel. So they can keep leaving comments, they can keep watching, those comments just won't show up. They won't know that they don't show up. So they'll just be kind of like yelling at clouds after that. I used to in the past engage more with negative comments, but it's usually pretty useless. In the medium that we're working with here on YouTube, online, you can't really have a conversation with someone. And if someone is going to go to the trouble of insulting a stranger online, then they're probably not someone that you can really engage with anyway. So like, I have never left a negative comment on a YouTube video, ever. and I consume a lot of YouTube videos, but it has never occurred to me that I would want to say something mean to somebody on YouTube. Even if I didn't like them, even if I thought they were a jerk, why would I need to say that? And so it's just a whole different level of interaction that nothing good can come of it, and for the most part, it's impossible to insult me, because if somebody says something that's insulting, that's not actually like constructive. You know, I could have friends or relatives or someone and say, hey, I think maybe what you're doing here is wrong, and here's why. I respect them, I know that they care about me, and I can have a conversation about that. If someone is just going out of their way to insult me, that means that they are a jerk, and therefore their opinion doesn't matter. So it's pretty easy. Like, it's impossible to insult me, and so it's pretty much impossible for me to rise to the bait. I maybe have a couple of times in the past. So yeah, there are hardly anyone ever does anything nasty on the channel, and if they do, then I just push them aside and forget about it. But thank you for the question, Kyle. Next is from Ignacio Rufino. I don't have a Twitter account. However, I do have a question for you. What is a tea that is close to taste as Elizabethan in flake or broken flake form? I'm a big fan of GLP's products and am currently into Fillmore. I enjoy watching while at work. Please continue to provide us with content since we are unable to smoke together at our favorite events, such as pipe shows. I hope the Chicago show happens in 2021. Well, you mentioned it, Ignacio. Fillmore is the one that comes to mind the quickest. I did that series where I was trying to replace Elizabethan. I was looking at a lot of GLP's blends, and Fillmore was one of those blends. I didn't end up choosing it because it was a flake, or I think it's a broken flake. But I think that's the best thing I could think of would be Fillmore. It has a very similar character to Elizabethan, but it is in broken flake form. Next, from Enduro500, hashtag askstuffandthings. Hi there. First of all, thank you for the great content and your reviews of OTC aromatics, over the counter. They ultimately convinced me to turn my back on tasteless aromatics and fall in love with English blends. Now to my question. Thank you, Enduro, for that, for those kind words. Maybe the community might help me out too. I recently tried Robert McConnell's Scottish Flake and fell in love with its fruitiness. Apricot? I tried Elizabethan mixture a while ago, sadly not available in Germany under Peterson. My voice that I've picked for you is horribly wrong if you're German. And remember a lovely fruit note that was quite similar, yet not as pronounced. Which component might be responsible for that? Only similarities are the perique, only a small pinch in Scottish Flake, and the red Virginias, though the tin of Elizabethan only says dark Virginias. My guess would be the red leaf might give this fruity note. Many thanks in advance. Greetings from Germany. Keep up the great work. Greetings from the US. Thank you for watching from Germany. Right off the bat, I would just say perique, because perique can give you a fruity, raisiny, pruny kind of flavor. The red Virginias, I'm fairly certain that there are red Virginias in Elizabethan. They can give you a kind of fruity overtone as well. I think it's probably just a combination of the two, because you will get a fruity note from certain Virginias, and you'll definitely get a kind of richer fruity note from perique. But thank you for the question. I think this is the last question from Cheesy Bacon, someone who has contributed much in the past. They say, you have made mention several times in the past that you very frequently pair your pipes with coffee or the occasional Dr. Pepper. I enjoy a good cup of coffee with a pipe as well, but expressly avoid it and anything other than water when trying a new blend for the first time or while trying to figure out the more subtle nuances. Have you noticed any impact from these liquid pairings on your own perception of a given tea's flavor, either positively or negatively? Hashtag askstuffandthings. That is an interesting question, Cheesy Bacon. I can't say that I notice coffee or Dr. Pepper, if I'm drinking Dr. Pepper, coloring my palate too much or affecting my palate. I would assume that there is some residual flavor that is being imparted, but I don't know. I guess coffee is something that I drink so often that I'm typically going to be drinking it when I have a pipe anyway, and so if it is affecting the flavor, it will always be affecting the flavor. And I don't think it's affecting it enough that it's going to alter things too much, because I've had blends with nothing, with no drink, not even water, and it's never occurred to me like, oh, this tastes quite a bit differently than it did when I was drinking coffee with this blend. I think if you were having something alcoholic, to me, that would make more of an effect. But coffee, maybe soda, because there's sugar in that, might have a little bit more of an effect, like the Dr. Pepper that I enjoy. But for me, coffee, I don't really put any sugar in, just a tiny pinch and a little bit of cream. I don't know, it's so innocuous to me, and it's something that I don't even really think about. It's just a liquid that I ingest on a very regular basis, and when I'm having a pipe, I'm also having coffee pretty much 99% of the time. So if it does affect the flavor, I think it's very minimal, and it doesn't really matter to me anyway, because I'm always having it with coffee. But that's a good question. Gang, I hope that I got to everybody's question. I tried to answer as many as I possibly could. That does not mean that you're off the hook for next week. You still need to ask me questions for next week's Sunday Stuff and Things, and then we'll also try to get to some of the topics that I didn't discuss this week. I have several things I want to mention next week as well. We'll have to talk about the Seahawks. Their last game of the season is this weekend, and as of now, they're the NFC West champions, but there is a slim possibility that they could get the #1 seed in the NFC, so we'll discuss that after the fact. Many other things to discuss. Please watch. Wait a minute, I'm doing all this in the wrong order. Now it's time for the very best part of the show. I forgot. Every week, we like to do a special shout out to everyone who supports the channel on Patreon, or the channels on Patreon, because you're also supporting Stuff and Things Plays with your contribution. It's very, 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 very flattering and very gratifying that people decide to support us on Patreon, because I don't really offer, this isn't a, here, you pay me this money and I'll give you this thing. The thing that you're getting is me making videos every single week, and you could get that for free anyway. You could just watch on YouTube, and that would be enough. That would be plenty for me, because I love the fact that people are watching and engaging with the content, leaving comments, subscribing, all that stuff means a lot. But the fact that you go that extra mile to support on Patreon is so gratifying and very humbling too, in a way, because it makes me feel like I've got to make sure I keep producing content, and it's got to be good. And I don't know if I always hit that mark, but I always try. Don't always have a ton of time every week, but I'm always working and always trying to get stuff out for you guys. And so I really appreciate it. And me shouting you out every week, if you're at the 25 and up tier, is one of the ways that I try to say thank you. So this week I would like to thank Ryan McFadin, Kirk Crompton, Private Eye, Cody Striegler, Glenn, Gus, Jason Buckner, Jen Oside, John Leone, Christian Kovacs, and Joshua Jackson. And let's not forget the maniac tier, the crazy people who support the channels at $100 a month. People like Peter Straub, Bob McGee, and David Gaudreau. David, is it Gaudreau or Gaudreau? Please let me know in the comments below, and thank you very much for your support. Thank you all so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this wall-to-wall Ask Stuff and Things section that we did on this channel. Please watch the review of the Domke F2 shoulder bag. We haven't done an old-fashioned like product review in a long time on the Stuff and Things channel, so it was fun doing that. This is coming up on Wednesday. We also have Cyberpunk and Soma on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays on Stuff and Things Plays. But until next time, until we meet again, I've been your good friend Bradley. You've been the audience. This has been Stuff and Things on a pleasant Sunday, Stuff and Things. Happy New Year, and I'll see you later.